Here we go. I'm going to scoot in.
You should scoot in. Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Endorian Guitar Works Backstage.
This is a guided look at life, experiences, and the ways and means of the guitarist's journey.
I'm Matt Ackerman.
Brian McCoy, welcome.
We have a third with us today.
We do have a third. We'll get to him in just a moment.
It's true.
But we'll do our normal welcome.
We'll do our normal welcome. We'll talk about sort of the weird things that are happening right now. If you're hearing us on Instagram right now, it's because I have a cell phone off camera here pointed down. As I said to Facebook earlier today, sometimes you need low-tech solutions for high-tech issues.
Yeah, it's true. As we're transitioning over to YouTube.
Which is probably something we should have done from the very beginning, but YouTube is big and ominous and sometimes scary, and Instagram seems really friendly, but Instagram has its own limitations, and so we're making the big push to come over to YouTube. So I hope people are going to see this, and if not, we'll call it a good exercise. But that's where we are right now.
That is where we are. Well, so how's the last couple of weeks been?
Oh, the last couple of weeks been awesome. Moved into the shop.
Yeah.
Actually started doing repairs, and we've got 3 custom guitars being built right now. 2 are kind of super secret squirrel in terms of the partnership, because I'm not gonna let that cat out of the bag until I have the 2 guitars in camera, so we can do a big release.
That's a fun secret too.
Yeah, it is a fun secret. It's a fun only local secret, which is, I'm just so damn excited about it.
As you should be. I think it's a really cool idea.
And then the third guitar is one that I was going to wait for my daughter to help me out with, and then I decided that because family stuff, because she's at her mom's house for these 3 weeks, I just couldn't wait. So I'm ordering a 4th guitar for me and her to do, because I just had to get going and make this guitar now. So, but right now there's 3 guitars in the work, 3.5 I guess, because the 4th one is on the way, and we'll be starting that one off. So 4 custom guitars in the shop right now, directly below us, and doing a lot of repair work for customers who've been coming this way, which is a blast.
That's awesome.
I guess
getting off on the good foot.
On the good foot. I guess that's the past 2 weeks. I think there's probably more, but I don't remember most of it. What am I forgetting?
I'm not sure. You were gonna go camping or something, and that trip got canceled. That's about all I remember.
Oh yeah, I was supposed to. I was actually supposed to be in Minnesota right now, and then I was.
Glad you're not.
Well, I was going to live stream this. I was thinking how we would do Backstage if I was in Minnesota, is that we would just Instagram each other, and it would be a split screen, and we would just
we were talking about trying to do that.
Yeah.
Well,
I like what we have planned tonight.
I think tonight's going to be a lot of fun, and
I think you should introduce our person.
I want to start by kind of talking about my last 2 weeks.
Well, let's talk about his.
Well, at least more recent. I mean, I threw my back out.
I didn't want to talk about my 2 weeks. We could have talked about yours.
I wanted to talk about yours.
Okay.
I started. Had gone up to our good friend Tony Reed's and got a little tour of his studio before we did our last show. Mm-hmm. Some of you hopefully have seen a little bit of that B-roll. I was helping my dad, and I threw my back out, so I've been pretty much chilling through all this heat, trying to get my back right. But Saturday, went downtown, drank a little bit too much beer at Ole Beer Fest.
That never happens at Beer Fest. I thought it was Hydration Fest.
No, I was drinking the 10%ers, and not drinking enough water. I know, honey, but and in the hot sun and everything. But then we went down to the Love Ole Fest and watched Speed Dealer. We missed Stuntman. Sorry, guys. Jerry, love you.
I saw you, Jerry.
Is that Todd, Jerry formerly from The Hard Way?
Jerry Ziegler. He was in Fits of Depression.
Okay,
And Mosquito Hawk, and God, was he in The Accused back in the day? He's been in so many fucking bands.
I don't remember him being in
Coven. He was in Coven for a minute. Maybe it wasn't The Accused. It's that era.
He was in a group that did some cover stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of a heavyset singer guitar player, I remember. The name is going to come to me as soon as we stop thinking about it.
There was a Slayer cover band that he did too.
Yeah. There's no rules on this, so if it comes to you mid-sentence,
just blurt it out.
Okay.
And then we saw Speed Dealer and the Super Suckers.
Was it the Chiefs?
Chief? Yeah, he was in Chief. He was in Chief.
Chief.
Yeah. So, yeah, then night ended up, and Todd and I. This is my friend Todd Lukey.
Hey.
Joining us tonight.
Good to see everybody.
And he and I were spending a lot of time Saturday together, watching the Super Suckers and hanging out.
I still have my Super Suckers button.
Got the button.
Not sure if anybody can see it.
See
there.
through the microphone.
Let me go that way.
So, but yeah, we had been planning for tonight to be with Todd and his buddy Ty as the Dead Hollows, and unfortunately there was some issues, so Ty's not going to be able to make it tonight. But Todd was still available, so here we go. Right, Dead Hollows, Killer 7-inch, and so we thought, shoot, Todd's willing to come out still and hang out, so he came over here, and rather than doing the Zoom thing that we've been doing with other bands and other artists like Tony and Los Occupados, we have our first live guest. So everybody, welcome.
I'm the first
Todd
live guest?
You are our first live guest.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been tough to reanimate the corpses with all the other guests, but it was worth it. It was just worth our time more to bring on more.
And I probably smell as bad as a corpse. So
thankfully we have not reached smell-o-vision. No. Do you remember like 10 years ago they were talking about doing that? Like little incense packets that would be in the backs of cell
I
phones.
thought that was the dumbest goddamn thing.
Instead of using
I'm glad I haven't done that.
These high
Thank
frequency
you for not doing
ringers
that.
or something, you could just put your ringer on silent and then your phone would just emit any sort of scent.
Since we're on
I'm not familiar
YouTube
with that.
and they're owned by Google, thank you for not doing that, Google.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How many times can you thank Google for
So for that, I'm going to thank them a lot because that would have sucked.
Did you notice that Google went down last night?
No, I did not.
Man, it was down for a solid 20 minutes.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen during this show. This is our first show on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh.
We don't want to have that happen. So, well,
cool.
Todd, welcome to the show.
Good to see you again, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
And Matt.
Good to see you too.
And it is kind of, I didn't know that I was the first person to actually come here to hang out with you guys.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty cool, but it's also cool that I think I'm following Tony from Moss Generator,
Yes, you are.
which that dude is cool. Moss Generator and his other projects.
And many other projects.
He's a great guy.
If you like rock music, you definitely need to check out some Moss Generator and all of Tony's stuff.
Stone Axe, Constance Tomb, Hot Spring Water, Tree People, back from the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, that goes back quite a ways, yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Tony's been involved in everything.
So yeah, this is pretty exciting for me to be here.
You've been involved in a lot of music locally.
Yeah.
Over the last 30 years as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, tell us a little bit about how you got your start in music and some of the bands that you've been in over time.
Like from the very beginning, how I got into music?
From the beginning of time.
From the beginning of my time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I came out the womb screaming like Judas Priest.
Well, my wife and I like to joke that at the beginning of time, one soul was broken into two pieces. And eventually we found each other.
Yeah.
But I'll go back in time to when I was a kid. I grew up in a small town in Washington called Toledo, Washington. And my dad was a school teacher there, and I was interested in skateboarding very much. Still am, really, but I did that a lot more than anything else. I liked art, and I liked comic books, and I liked the art of comic books is what really drew me to it. And so, as I was becoming a teenager, I kind of had this idea that I was going to be an artist. And I think it was in the 6th grade. Oh, no, I need to back up just a skosh. So when I was a little kid, my parents had me take piano lessons. I took like about 3 years of piano lessons. So I learned how to read music, both clefs, and I learned how to play music. But I had left that as I went on as a young person. And then as a teenager, my eyes were kind of looking toward being a graphic artist of some kind, maybe a comic book artist. That was something that I would fantasize about as a kid. And in the 6th grade, I had a friend named Ben Winters, and he and I were always up to no good. And we had gotten in trouble for, I don't remember what, but we were causing mischief. And so the principal sat us down and said, look, you guys no longer can have a free period. You have to take a class, and you can either take this math class or you can take band. And he right away was like, I'll take the math class because he didn't play anything. But I thought, well, wait a minute. I already know how to read music, so how hard could it be? The problem was the one band teacher that worked both at the high school and the middle school, I had been such a smartass to this guy. I mean, just relentless. And
Whoops.
so I said, oh, I'll take band, because I thought that would be the easier thing. And so the principal walked me to the band room where the band teacher was. His name was Mr. Hurd. And I said, I'm going to join band. And he said, Lukey, what are you going to play? Like, we've already been doing this since the 5th grade, and it's now the 6th grade halfway through the year. And I kind of looked around the room, and I saw drums, like a snare drum, and I thought, oh, if I learn how to play drums, then I could probably join a rock band at some point. Because I was still listening to music. I mean, skateboarding and punk rock music, or music in general, was really hand in hand.
Yeah.
I was in the 80s. And so that was half of being in the skateboard culture was, you would trade tapes with friends or whatever. If you would get a Bad Brains record, your friends would tape it on cassette off of the record, and then if they got like a Corrosion of Conformity record, you would get a cassette recording of that. Anyhow,
Trying to figure out how to put the right amount of tunes on which side of the tape.
I would buy the 120-minute cassettes.
Yeah, so you get one on either
I had
side.
one cassette with Misfits Evil Live, TSOL's second album, Circle Jerk's first 2 albums, because I mean they're only like 20 minutes long.
Yeah,
so
your punk rock records back, especially back in the 80s.
If
were
you
like,
don't know what a cassette is,
maybe I
you
should.
probably have more followers than us.
if you don't know what a record is, you got problems.
When I was a kid in the 1980s, you bought music on
Back
two
in the
formats.
1900s, as
Yeah.
Eddie Spaghetti would say.
As Eddie Spaghetti from the
20th
Super
century.
Suckers would say, you would buy vinyl records, which are big discs, or you could get cassette tapes that you could actually play in your car, because you can't put a vinyl record in your car as you're driving.
Oh,
And
of course you can. No one wanted to try.
so anyhow, I had this idea, I could probably join a rock band if I learned to play drums. And so he said, well, what makes you think you can do this? I said, well, I can already read music. And it was a shock to him. And he said, you can? And I said, yeah, let's go to the piano. And I kind of showed him I knew what middle C was, and I knew how to, he put stuff in front of me, and I kind of played it a little bit. And he was like, reluctantly, I guess. Yeah, okay.
You already know how to play one percussive instrument.
Yeah, so I mean, it's drums. How hard can it be? You're playing rhythms, right? And so I struggled a little bit at first, and there was somewhere toward the end of that school year where he just came back to the snare drum, and I was looking at the music trying to sort it out, and I was playing the snare drum because the other couple of people who were there that were the drummers, they really were just taking it because they didn't want a real class, and they didn't really make any effort to learn anything about reading the music. And he just said to me, what's wrong with you, Lukey? It's just like 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And as he said the syllables, I followed it across the page, and I was like, you're right. What is the problem? And I just started doing it. And from that point forward,
Click.
Yeah, it clicked into place in my brain, and I became a drummer. And then by the 8th grade, I was excited to be a drummer, and I was diving deeper into more classic rock and a little less of the punk rock stuff. I wasn't leaving the punk rock stuff. It was just, having friends come over and say, this video cassette, which is how we used to watch movies.
It's a little bit bigger than an audio cassette.
Yeah.
But the same kind of
This
idea.
is...
Be kind, please rewind.
Yeah,
Yes,
Be
sir.
Kind, Please Rewind. This is the Led Zeppelin movie called The Song Remains the Same. You've got to check this out. I'm like, Led Zeppelin? Who? I've never heard of him. Who is he? And it's like, it's not a he, it's a
It's not
band.
Les Zeppelin. It's Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin.
So putting that in, and my friends knowing that I had started playing the drums and was enthusiastic about it, and so I got turned on to stuff like that and saw John Bonham for the first time.
Ooh,
And
there you
he
go.
has a drum solo in that film and stuff. In fact, he has a drum solo at the end of the first song that they play in the film. A lot of the artsy fartsy weird stuff before they actually show the footage of them playing in Madison Square Garden took me off guard as a 13-year-old. What with the manager having this fantasy sequence of going in and machine gunning down all of these werewolves and vampires and men without faces and stuff. Didn't really get
Go
that
check
at
it
the
out,
time.
kids. It's an amazing
Yeah.
classic.
Actually, the live footage is classic, but
It is.
I think every music film that was made in the 70s was pretty much conceived like, I got this idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be great.
It's gonna be
You're
great.
going to be a knight in a castle, and you're going to be a drag racer, and you're going to be like a guy who haunts the graveyard at night, and then I am going to go into a casino where there's werewolves and vampires, and I'm going to mow them down with a machine gun, you know.
It's like everybody saw
And everybody went,
it's like,
that is awesome.
that's our music
Do
video.
it.
I want to be a troll at a bridge who asks 3 questions.
Yeah. That's kind of what
Red,
that...
no yellow, no green, no.
But that's what that Led Zeppelin film, when I first saw it at 13, that really took me off guard, these bizarre fantasy sequences. But I loved the music. And it was somewhere around that time I told my parents, I want a drum set. And they said no. And I went to school with a girl whose dad was a drummer, and he kind of did weekend gigs or whatever, but he had tapered off quite a bit from that to become more of a family man. And I don't remember how the communication happened, but he became aware that I wanted to play a drum set. So he loaned me his drum set. And for, I think it was about 6 months maybe, I'm kind of foggy on this as far as exact timelines.
It was a while ago.
I would come home after school every day, and I would just hit those drums as hard as I could, sweating, just, you know. And to my parents' credit, I mean, it was, and drum sets are loud. Everybody, the whole neighborhood knew when I got home from school. And my parents never discouraged me in any way. And once they saw that the interest wasn't going to wane, which usually when I become interested in something, it doesn't wane and it becomes obsessive. My dad had gone through the want ads and found this guy in Longview who was a retiring professional drummer. He had been a country drummer or whatever, and he had this really cool Black Rogers set. We went down, they negotiated, and then we got the drum set and put it in the car and came home, and I started bashing those drums every day after school since then. So yeah, that's how it first got rolling. That same band teacher, when I got into high school, before my freshman year, we had done an orientation to the high school. And in the band room in the closet was this electric bass. It was a PV T40, really heavy bass. I think in the mid 70s they had decided that the heavier the wood, the better the resonance or something. But it was heavy.
Yeah, I've got a T60, which was their first electric guitar. And it's sitting back there, and it's it holds the sheetrock in place.
They're heavy wood guitars for sure.
Yeah.
But I saw that, and I said, "Oh, this is really cool," you know. And he looked at me and said, "Well, you can read music. Why don't you just take that home and learn how to play it in summer, and then come back and you'll play in the pep band?" Which I had anticipated playing the drum set in the pep band, not knowing that as a freshman I would have to acquiesce to the seniors who were in the group to play pep band. But I took it home, and again, you know, my parents put up with me, just this loud rumbling through the house. And there was a teacher in Chehalis, Mike. His last name might come back to me, but he was a guitar teacher, but he knew how to read music, knew bass clef. And the biggest obstacle I had at first was I didn't know where any of the notes were. I didn't know how to tune it. So I told him the first thing I need to know is what notes am I playing here? And we sorted that all out. And because my dad had a nylon string guitar always laying around the house. My dad is Mexican, so he would kind of, for fun, just pick it up and kind of do these little mariachi things, and he would throw his fingers across the strings like that. And as a kid, I would play with it as a toy, but I didn't really pursue it. But I had that coordination already. So once Mike had worked out where the notes were for me on the neck of the bass, the electric bass, I was able to play stuff. And so some of the first stuff that I learned was like Dazed and Confused by Led Zeppelin, that really great bass line, and Money by Pink Floyd, that was another one. Yep. So should I be looking at the camera?
You're great. You're great.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
great.
anyway, that progressed, and then I was like, all right, Mike, I think I'm ready for something like Black Dog, you know, and he would show me the lick for Black Dog on the bass. And then I would play along with the Zeppelin records at that point, and it just kept growing from there. And I was about 16 where I was doing both the drums and the electric bass, and going to high school. And it was a small town, so, you know, a dude like me was wearing things like Dead Kennedys t-shirts and Vision streetwear pants and, you know, Vans skate shoes. And this was challenging at the time to the people in the town that I grew up with. And
kind of more of a, I would assume, especially at the time, country.
Yeah, it was
Redneck
definitely a
town.
rural place to grow up, and there wasn't a lot of progressive thinking. But I always had this just ambition to go to live in a city and I would read things like as a little kid, like read Spider-Man comic books, and he lived in New York City, and these buildings were so huge and things like that. And my teenage mind was like drawn to that. And so I ended up being recruited for this thing called Running Start, which high school you can then attend college classes as well.
Yeah, I did that. My kid did that.
Yeah. I remember being told I was the second person to do it. Maybe I was the second person to do it at Centralia College. I don't know. And that may not even be true. I don't know. But someone told me that as I was in the process of doing that. And the guidance counselor was like, look, you don't really want to be here in high school in Toledo. Right. And this is an opportunity for you to get a college degree and whatever. And you like music, right? Because I was like the music guy, because I was always listening to music and wearing some sort of T-shirt and going to shows and things like that. They can teach you music theory. And I remember sitting back, and when I tell this story, I always think it's really strange because this was a turning point in my life. Mm-hmm. But I remember looking back and thinking, do you think they could explain to me like how scales work with chords and stuff?
Yes.
And he kind of laughed, and he looked at me, and his name, the guidance counselor, was Mr. Koningsberger. And he laughed, and he said, yeah, that's called music theory. And I was like, okay. And like that was my big decision, and it seemed like such a off-the-cuff, whimsical moment. But in looking back, it's like that's what got me on my career as a musician.
I completely, at least I think I completely understand the mindset that you were in at that moment. I can't speak for Brian, but we did both go to Central in Ellensburg.
Mm-hmm.
And
my brother went there. Yeah.
And first year, and I think all the years of theory, but I only got a minor. But at least for first year, theory was taught by the late Dr. Peter Grease. And
I met him.
He's an amazing man.
He's great.
He had gray hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was pretty boisterous, dude. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that dude.
But he was all about inclusiveness, and if you were part of the School of Music, you were going to learn.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because you had to learn, it was because, you did have to learn. In order to be successful, you were going to need to learn this. But degree. He wanted you to understand it.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole different language. There's a whole... You walk into the realm of understanding music theory, you exist on a different plane. And, and I remember sitting there in... I do not remember the name of the room, but it was the one with the choir room with the Bossendorfer, the piano in there. And
did the jazz band rehearse in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that room. Yeah.
And he would, he flipped open the panel to the lower four keys on the hidden, the 89th or 92nd key, and asked for complete silence and rang that note out, and you would just sit there and listen while this giant fundamental, like what's 4 lower than an A, right? Whatever that note was, just broke apart into like 6, 12, all these overtones, and there was this choir of notes that would just ring there, and everyone realized, this is of course like day one of music theory as a freshman in college, and everyone realized that they were about to go someplace very incredible. And some people got it and some people did it, but I think that was a turning point, when you walked into the music theory, the space of music theory.
Yeah. I talked with who would be my instructor. Her name was Dr. Donna Huffman on the phone at the end of the school year, because I had a summer before going in. Mm-hmm. And she said, if you're going to take music theory, start practicing your piano every day. And I was like, I guess, Mm-hmm. And I did practice a little bit, but I understood after I got there why she said that. And so, I ended up going to Centralia College, and originally I was going to be a double major of percussion and bass. And then I learned that if you want to be a percussion major, you actually have to work on 4 things all the time. You have to work on your drum set, you have to work on your concert snare, you also have to work on your keyboards, so your mallets, like marimbas, vibraphones, that sort of stuff, glockenspiels. And you also have to have your percussion stuff. You have to know how to play all of the auxiliary percussion stuff. And I started lessons with a guy named Jeff Bush, who was from Olympia, but he would come to Centralia. And he got me on a lot of right paths with that. And then I was informed that the electric bass, even though Dr. Huffman was okay with me playing the electric bass, no real university allows a bass player to study an electric bass, because at that time, in the mid-90s, I think it was 92 or 93, the electric bass was still not accepted in most universities as a legitimate instrument. It was like saying, I'm going to major on the kazoo, right? And I remember one of my first challenges to these sorts of things was like, what are you talking? I've been using an electric bass and recorded music in performances for the last 40 years.
If you're going to play on a bass, you will not have frets and you will be standing.
Stand-up bass or nothing.
Yeah. So you had to...
Rockabilly only.
Right. Well, no, not rockabilly. You're going to use a bow and you're going to be playing some Bach cello suites is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Bach cello? like Bach cello?
Oh, like Bacchus, yeah. As a side note, this is my friend's band, Bacchus. I don't know if I can get in the picture there.
Come this way. Yeah,
there we go.
I helped design that. Sure.
Yeah. One of the heaviest bands in the Northwest. And they're going to be doing some shows.
That is so true.
Yes. October. Hopefully we'll have them in some way, shape, or form on the show as well.
That would be awesome.
October, they're coming to play Arts Walk, McCoy's, Rat City Recon. So
yeah, they've got 3 or 4 shows lined up. It's going to be pretty cool.
Tacoma, Plaid Pig.
So check them out. Bacchus. Yes. Anyway, yeah. At one point in that first quarter, I realized I wasn't having any free time, because in the usual studies with the music theory, the sight singing and ear training, then I had to practice the bass parts for the jazz band, because even though I could read, I knew where the notes were. The first day, she was like, okay, everybody got, whatever it was, Sweet Georgia Brown or Moten Swinger, some jazz big band thing. And I put the music out in front of me, and I'm like, boom, 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 boom. And that's what's going through my mind. And she's just, all right, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And the band just starts playing. Yeah. And I was completely lost. Yeah. No, that wasn't me. That was me like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
I'm lost.
I'm just going to kind of do chromatically up and down, and maybe that'll work. And so it was a long journey to get my skills up. It was good to be challenged like that right away.
Yeah.
But I ended up just switching to the bass, because it seemed like 2 things to work on as opposed to 4 seemed more logical to me. So the drums took a back seat for a while, and was there for 3 years, and got some chops up, and learned that practicing is the most important thing when you want to get good at something, and not just practicing.
Certainly is, kids.
And not just practicing, but having a direction and a goal, and steps of goals in your practice to be reaching the whole time. And after a while, it seems like when you're in it and everything's right here in front of you, and you're just kind of trying to keep going forward, and you don't think you're making any progress, but after a year, and you can turn back and you're like, oh, I've really come a long way from the moment that I started to now. So that was instilled by Dr. Huffman. She's like, she even said to us the first maybe a week or 2, if you don't enjoy practicing your instrument, you need to stop taking music.
Right.
And most of us were offended by that, because most teenagers, how dare you talk to me like that? But it was the truth. And she had been a world champion trumpet player, and had been ranked within the top 5 or 10 or something in the world, sometime in the 70s and the 80s. She went to the competitions and things like that. She had a doctorate in composition and performance. So she was no slouch, and she knew what she was talking about, for sure. She was a tremendous musician.
The concept of goal setting, I think, is important to emphasize, especially when as you become a more proficient musician, but maybe you start to disengage from the things that pushed you forward into the levels of success that got you where you are.
Yeah.
I know for me specifically, I got to a point where I had done all this stuff, but I was no longer a professional musician, as it were, and I was sort of resting on my laurels, whatever it is. I was existing on this plane that I was at, forgetting what brought me there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to break. How do you get better? How do you get better? How do you get better? It was simply I went back to the old practice routines, to this technique and that technique and this regimen, and I still wasn't going anywhere. And and there was this obvious piece that was missing. And I went to our friend Joe Sokolick, and I said, Joe, what would you do? And he said, Matt, you're forgetting something. You set a goal. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't just get in your car and start driving and hope to end up at the store.
Yeah.
You know where you're going. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take to get there. It doesn't matter if you take the most difficult road. It doesn't matter if one of your wheels falls off. This is where you're headed. That's where you're going to get to. And to treat your music that way, which will dictate how you practice, when you practice, why, what.
Yeah.
And then you'll find yourself where you need to be.
Yeah.
So long as you continue to set goals. Yeah. Once you reach that.
Yeah, sure.
If you attain that milestone, you still need to have the next milestone ready to go.
Yeah, that's true. It reminds me of two things, actually, what you just said. There's a lyric that George Harrison had on one of his albums. I think it was the Brainwashed album. On the first song, he said, I don't know if it's the first song now, but the lyric is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Yep. And the other thing is...
every system is perfectly designed to deliver the results it gets.
Yeah,
so like if you're not doing shit and you're getting shit for results, like you've got a really good system for that.
Yeah. And that's not just with music; it's kind of with life. Yeah. But the other thing that reminds me of, eventually, I did get an upright bass. It wasn't at first. In fact, I had to get a loan from the bank because they're
pretty penny.
They don't give them away for free.
Not even from the schools, kids.
And
I hope we have more than kids watching.
Well, I mean, I'd like to have kids though too.
Hopefully everybody's watching.
I clicked the button on YouTube, not made for kids. Like you're gonna get us flagged.
Fucking A.
God.
Now we're not made for kids.
Google.
Dropping
Go away, kids.
It just so happened that there was a excellent bass player that lived in Chehalis, who I kind of had met somewhere along the line. My brother was into mountain bikes and had a Klein mountain bike, and he would go to this bike shop. His name was Dave Shriver. And so I got this upright bass, and I figured instead of driving to Seattle to try to take lessons to learn how to, it was just this monstrous thing. How lucky am I that this guy can show me, how to play this upright bass, and he just lives, 10 miles from where I'm living in Centralia. And the thing about it was, we had started on electric, and I was able to get the money from a loan from the bank to get this upright. And it was sent over from Europe. It was then assembled for me in Portland, and I went and picked it up. And I remember bringing it home. And at the time in Centralia, I lived in this 3-story Victorian house. As you kind of came in the door, there was a big coat rack that had a mirror in the center of it. So it was a full-length mirror. And I got the bass out, and I'd never really played with a bow before, and I get it out, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm just so excited, just, over the moon. And I draw the bow across the string, and it was... and I just...
That's not what it was supposed
to
sound like.
Whoa, yeah, that's not what I was expecting, like... And what I got was... Like, for the first 10, 15 minutes... That's all I could get out of this big upright bass. And there was a moment where I started to tear up. Like, what have I done? I can't, I'm not going to be able to do this. Yeah. Like, everything else seems to come pretty easy or reasonably easy for me at this point. I can understand the concept of things. If I don't get it, I can at least foresee how to progress at this and get what I want underneath my fingers. And boy, it was a hard pill to swallow that day. And so I ended up taking that bass over to Dave's bicycle shop, and we'd kind of go in the back where they had the mounts to work on bikes and stuff, and we'd be in our stools, and he would give me all kinds of good advice. And he was a tremendous bass player, but more than that, he was just a really good guy. He was really fun, and he was bald on the top. He kind of had long gray hair, and he had this gray goatee, and kind of a podgy dude, Mm-hmm. And then he said, well, he kept saying, when Trini and I did such and such, blah, blah, blah. And I finally said to him, who is Trini? He's like, oh, well, you're probably too young to know. But Trini Lopez was this big star in the through the 60s and the 70s. And I played bass with him. And I said, oh, really? Oh, that's cool. Thinking, of course, he's got a lot of experience. But he wouldn't bring things out like that because unless you asked him directly, he wouldn't tell you too much about it, just because it was like that was his old life before he retired and opened a bike shop in Washington, in Chehalis.
Right.
But as we got to know each other, he wasn't conventional in the sense that, okay, the session starts now, we end in a half hour, we end in an hour. It's sometimes it could be 20 minutes and then he'd be distracted by something and go away, and sometimes it'd be 2 hours where we'd be back there sawing away at these basses. And over the course of this friendship that I was growing with him, he would say things, well, when we lived in Malibu, I'm like, Malibu, California. He's like, oh yeah, we lived next to, Steve McQueen and this, that, and the other. I'm like, the actor Steve McQueen? And it's like, yeah, another Steve McQueen? Anyway, well, in '66 when Bill Cosby was our opening comedian and we went to go play for the Princess of Monaco, and I'm like, what's going on?
Who are you?
Who are you? Are you? But he was mischievous and playful. So at first I thought he was being, he was teasing me. And the one that really pushed me over the edge in my mind as, a 19-year-old, 20-year-old dude was he said, well, when Ringo and I were messing around in the Bahamas at the blah, 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 and I'm like, Ringo? And by this point I knew who the Beatles were, and I was passionate about music and listened to all kinds of stuff, not just the classic rock or the punk rock. I was playing jazz. I was trying to learn what jazz was because I'd never had that in my life prior to going to college. He's like, Ringo Starr. I'm like, the drummer for the Beatles. And he's like, yeah, he was a buddy of mine. And I'm like, now you've gone too far.
Like I call bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't want to.
Bullshit.
And so he said, no, really.
Carl Pilkington.
No, really. We were friends and we were fooling around when they were doing that movie Help when they were in the Bahamas. I visited him as a friend and I was like, okay, sure, man. Sure. So he could see that at this point he kind of pushed me to where I started to push back. Like, no, this is all made up. You're really making me spin my wheels in my brain. Next time I went over there, he had a shoebox full of photos of him next to John Lennon, and this is a young him with a cool looking goatee, like the Van Dyke, and he's got the sweet shades on.
Obviously him. It's not like
it was him.
Yeah,
and
someone that looked like him.
It was like me and you, like this, looking over here to somebody taking a picture, and you're John Lennon. And I'm like,
thank you.
And I'm looking through these photos, and this is in the '90s before there's such a thing as Photoshop, or there's no suspicion about these being authentic. But there was a bunch of them, and and he was friends with Ringo, and I'm like, how did this happen? Like, we've known each other for like a year now, and you've never mentioned any of this. And he was like, that was, I'm retired from all this stuff. Yeah. Like that was like yesterday's news to him. And so that was the kind of dude that he was. He did lots of things like, well, let me finish that story there. And there's actually another good anecdote about the Beatles and Dave. But Dave's first gig was being the last the last bass player to play with Eddie Cochran. And there's actually on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you might want to check this out.
Should be on YouTube.
Okay. After the show's over, though.
Yeah, keep watching us and listen.
Stay on task.
So there's footage of Dave and Eddie Cochran playing a TV show. There was on YouTube. I haven't checked it in many years, but and he tells the good anecdote because Eddie had no laces in his shoes, and what Dave told me about that story was Eddie Cochran, one of the originators of rock and roll, was tying his shoes. He broke his lace. And he started to get real upset about it. And Dave just looked at him, and this is totally Dave. He's like, just take the laces out of the other one. And he was like, what do you mean? He's like, that way it won't look weird. And nobody will know. And that was kind of a signature thing for Eddie Cochran impersonators and things like that. And on there, Dave's doing like this little dance and stuff. Eddie, of course, went over to England with Gene Vincent and the Blue Cap. Or actually, the Blue Cap's sitting with him, but Gene Vincent. And they did a tour in England, and they had a car wreck, and Eddie died in that car wreck. The reason Dave didn't go with him to England for that tour was because the musicians union in England wouldn't allow, they'd allow the star to come over, but they had to hire British musicians to back them up. So his band couldn't go over. So Dave wasn't in the car where Eddie died in that wreck because he was still in America. So that catapulted him into, okay, I was playing with Eddie Cochran, who was a star at the time, backing him up, and they even played at the Centralia roller rink in the
Nice.
50s. Yeah. And I
Nice.
believe the roller rink is still there.
I think-
So then he met, somehow after that, he met Trini Lopez, who had had a career, and he had a hit with, I think his hit song at first was If I Had a Hammer. And he was kind of a crooner guitar player, right? And he had a hollow body. And he got that gig. And then I think he got that gig in 1960, and he held it till 70 or 72, somewhere around there. And even though he was the bass player, Trini then started making him, as time went on, the musical director, which meant he had to do all the work, and Trini just showed up and, and played. But as I started to really ask deep questions with him, like, well, how did you meet the Beatles? He's like, well, they opened up for us. And if you watch something like the Beatles anthology, where they're going from like 1960 to 1962, and then 1963 they've got their manager, they put out their first single, they're working on their first album. They go to France, and they show the marquee, right? Now I saw this after David told me this story, and I remember when they put the Beatles anthology on ABC, the television. This is back when there was only 3 channels on TV.
ABC, NBC, CBS. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, and
Don't forget about TBN.
that was later. That was later. Yeah. So
The Bible.
I would, everybody in my family wanted to
Thanks,
see
Kirk
the Beatles anthology because it was so exciting as Beatles fans. And the marquee of when they go to France to play the Olympia Theater there, Trini Lopez, Helen Shapiro, the Beatles.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, he is telling me the truth. This is real. And so
Wow.
when they were playing with Trini, because Trini was a big star at that time, what they dug about him was, what they liked about Dave was that he was the last bass player with Eddie Cochran. And they were huge early rock and roll fans. So they were enamored with Little Richard and Eddie and Gene Vincent and, of course, Elvis, those sorts of people. So when the 4 Beatles found out, oh, you played with Eddie Cochran? And as I said,
Like they were starstruck.
They were, they had a connection. They were starstruck in a way that they just loved this American music so much. And this was an authentic piece of it in front of them.
Legitimacy there.
Yeah.
And because Dave is, like I said, he was a mischievous, fun guy. And he would tease them, and they tease them back, and they had the same sense of humor. And that's where they started to grow that friendship. And he got close with Ringo, but he was a working musician. They were working musicians. So Trini was a star. And as Dave told me, we toured 6 continents 6 times. So it wasn't like Trini Lopez was riding the coattails of the Beatles. He had his own thing going. He's just less remembered today than, say, the Beatles are. Because the Beatles did a lot of things. But he maintained that friendship through the 60s. And the last anecdote I'll tell you about Dave and the Beatles that kind of knocked me off my chair when he told it to me so nonchalantly was, I said, I really like the Beatles. I've been diving deep. I bought the bread box that has all of the CDs in it, and so I'm going through everything. He's like, oh, okay, cool. What are you into now? And I'm like, I really liked Rubber Soul. I'm getting into this next one, Revolver. I'm digging it. And he's like, oh, yeah. I remember when they did that. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we were in London. We played the gig or the TV show or whatever it was. And I had an unusual day off because Trini always put all the work on me. I didn't really get a lot of time off. So I walked over to Abbey Road. Or not walked over, but I went over to Abbey Road. Knocked on the door, and then Mal Evans opens the front door at the Abbey Road studio and says, who are you? And he's like, hey, I'm Dave Shriver. I'm friends with Ringo. And he kind of looks at me and says, just go tell him. He'll know who I am. And he says, just wait here. He closes the door, and maybe a few minutes later, Mal comes back, opens the door, and he says, okay, come on. And so he closes the door and walks him down, because they used the big studio, the Studio A. And he was coming into the control room, and as he was coming in, Mal said something to the effect of, Ringo, your American friend is here. And, they had pleasantries. And he says, well, what are you guys doing? And he saw Paul McCartney down in the studio doing overdubs. And he said, oh, we're working on this song. One of George's songs. It's really cool, but Paul's doing this, like, really raunchy solo. And I said, he says, oh, okay, cool. And I said, well, what song was it? Like, what? I mean, it could only be a few songs if it's George Harrison. And he says, it's the first one on there. It's that, bum bum ba dip down. I'm like, Taxman? You saw Paul McCartney cut the kind of leads that he was doing? And he's like, Yeah, but we just bullshitted while he did it. Like, because to him that wasn't important. Like, you know, it was just like that was Tuesday for Dave, you know. Yeah. And by that point, the Beatles, of course, were worldwide. They were huge, you know, celebrities and whatever. And he was aware of that. It's not like that was lost on him, but it was like they were contemporaries to him.
Well, he was there to hang out with his buddy.
Yeah,
like
so about Dave Shriver, who was my upright bass teacher and good friend. He showed me how to play the upright bass, and he got me into the Olympia Symphony when I was the worst bass player in this section. But
you were in the section.
I was in the bass section at the Olympia Symphony, and he was a great mentor and a great friend and a great musician. And sadly, he had a stroke, and someone let me know, and I went to visit him at St. Peter's Hospital in Olympia, or actually in Lacey, and he couldn't talk right. And so when I came in, he looked at me and he goes, you, and he kind of was able to make a smile. And his girlfriend at the time, his wife had passed, and he had this girlfriend. She had put up pictures from his career, and there was one of the four Beatles, him with the four Beatles, and he's in the center, and they're all like this with Dave. And so she had pictures like that up, and then him with Trini, him with, you know, other celebrities, nice, Bob Dylan, nice, things like that. But I just sat down and I said, Dave, I know, you know, you're in a spot where you can't talk. Don't worry about it. Let's just hang out. And at the end of it, I said, I'm going to be back in a few days. And then he passed a couple days after I left. So rest in peace, Dave, and hope you're doing well wherever you're at. So it was sometime around there, back to me, that I had answered an ad at Music 6000 in Lacey, and this ad was the only one that seemed like reasonable to me. That, you know, they had gotten some recording equipment, they were very serious, they had a person who was going to be their manager, and I went out to audition and on electric bass because they were looking for a bass player. And this is after I had got my degree from Centralia College. I took an extra year of music theory because it kept getting better every year. So I was able to learn, you know, a little bit more. But I only got a 2-year degree, but I took 3 years. So I mean, whatever that means. And
extra credits.
And I'm glad I did. It was good stuff. And I met this guy named Eric Collins, and he was a guitar player. And when I came into their built studio, he had top of the line gear, and I was really impressed right away because it was like a Marshall, a Vox AC30, a Matchless, Fender Twin. And I remember asking, like, oh, are these like reissues or something? Like, so I said something. He's like, no, these are all real. Like, that's a '63 Vox AC30, you know.
Nice. And
they had already bought bass equipment. He already had bought himself. I think it was a '70s Ampeg SVT, you know, with 16 tubes in that big head, right? So it was all there. So I just pulled out, not this one, but one that looks just like this, which was my
Gear Talk.
Gear Talk. This is my Rickenbacker.
We have to make it fit.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
There. Ooh.
And they
reach out and touch someone.
Whoa.
There you go.
Hey-o.
Reach out and touch them.
I didn't touch you.
So I got one of those, and when I pulled that out of the case, he was like, nice.
Yep.
Because he was a fan of Rickenbacker. He had in addition to the amps on the floor on that one wall, he had like a guitar shop type of hangers that you would go into any guitar store.
Kind of like his upstairs, or the hallway back here, or kind of like these guys, you know.
Yeah, it was like that. It was more like the
side,
the bracket
ones.
the bracketed wall, and then you hang the metal hangers on when you go into Music 6000 as they're on the wall, or any, you know, guitar store. He had that on one wall, and he had about a dozen guitars, and they were all really great. He had a Rickenbacker 360, he had a Les Paul, he had a Strat. In fact, this was the Strat that he had at the time. I think, wait, do I do it that way? Okay.
I like it.
So he had that Strat, and he had a 57, it was a Jazzmaster. All these type of guitars. And so I thought, oh, these guys are for real. Like, and we got going, and it was like, you know, the usual thing when you first meet somebody, and it's like, well, what do you know? I don't know. What do you know? Yeah. So we ended up jamming on, I think, some ZZ Top, and it went well. And they're just like, okay, this is cool. Now we're going to play you a song that we've come up with. Let's see what you can come up with. And their manager at the time was sitting in the control area of behind the sliding glass doors of the studio there, and was just observing everything. And we played through this tune, and I just played, using everything that I had gained from up to that point. And they said, okay, well, that's cool, man. We'll let you know this week. And they then had me over again. They were like, we really liked how you came up with the bass line really quick. We liked that even though you weren't super familiar with how to play the ZZ Top song, that you just dove right in, and pleasantries, and yeah, you're in the group. Now we got to find a singer. And that's how that group started. And
what was the name of that group?
Eventually, that group would be called Super Czar.
Super Czar.
Yes.
I remember Super Czar. Back in the early 2000s, I actually ran sound at McCoy's Tavern downtown Olympia, and I ran sound for you guys.
Yeah.
McCoy that wasn't a McCoy.
Well, I don't think a McCoy has ever owned McCoy's.
Yeah.
Not everyone.
Yet. I know.
You know what? Maybe that's.
There might be a short list.
Yeah. So you heard it here first, people. So that was a group called Super Czar, and I played bass, and eventually the three of us we had let our singer go, and we decided, well, we could do this. We can't. How can we be any worse than any of the other groups, doing vocals? And we were not great vocalists, but the drummer was pretty good, actually. He was a really good singer. But we toured, and we made a CD, and we toured up and down the West Coast a couple of times. Then we went all the way to New York, Washington, D.C., and back. And eventually, just things didn't stay together. But we were really loud. And Eric Collins, the guitar player that I had mentioned earlier, he was the other thing that impressed me about those guys was he could really play. Like things I would throw at him or he would throw at me, I never had any discomfort playing with him because he knew how to play rock music. He was a big fan, passionate, obsessed about the guitar, and made his own guitars, worked on his own guitars, and he loved the history of guitars, amps, everything. He just was a big fan of it. Side note, that guy, Eric Collins, lives here in Olympia, and he makes authentic reproduction grill cloth for the 60s kind of grill cloth that Marshall used. I think he's the only one in the world that does it because he takes orders from all around the world. Wow. So if you're interested, I think his website is called eccollins.com. Right. If not, you could probably find him because in the last couple of years, he has made a music video on YouTube for every single song on that Super Czar CD. He still loves Super Czar very much. So you could probably type in Super Czar, Super then TZAR into YouTube, and I'm sure some of his stuff is going to come up, and you could probably find him there if you're interested in such things. He's also he probably would just love to have emails about guitar. He's crazy about guitar.
Well, and another guest that we were going to have, actually we were supposed to have them on our last show. We had to bump them out because of some issues that they're having with building a new facility. They're expanding. Is Jasper Amps down in Texas, and they do Marshall style.
Yeah, the older circuits that are not the modern circuits, but really kind of taking that old circuit and jazzing it up. I don't want to spoil too much. I want to let him. But
I wonder if that might be kind of a cool connection to make.
That would be great. So. Yeah, I mean that's up to those guys. But,
so I want
as a part of our community, though,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I want to jump back real quickly before I want to move us into some of the gear that you brought and talk about lessons and what you're doing right now. I could sit here and listen to these stories. I can't believe we're sitting here at 55 minutes and it's like, wow, let's keep going.
Sorry.
No, please don't be sorry. We're booking you for number 2 already.
We're gonna have you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna have some more stories.
But I'm interested,
is it only supposed to be an hour show?
No, it's whatever we want it
to
be.
We can be whatever we want.
Oh, okay.
We have historically been 45 minutes to an hour. Tony went to an hour and a half.
Okay, so he set a precedent.
He set a precedent.
You don't need to worry about a thing. I just want to make sure we cover everything that I know we can cover. But I want to jump back real quick because I've been, so piano to drums bass.
Yeah. I should also say, as a side note to that, or in addition to that, I was playing a guitar the entire time all of that was going on. Except for from the drums forward, I was playing a guitar.
Sure.
But what I mean is it was more like a toy to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did buy, as a 13 or 14-year-old, with my own money, I bought a Kramer guitar with a Floyd Rose on it. Right.
Nice.
The guy who taught me how to play guitar when I first picked up an electric had a Kramer Striker, and I will always.
It was a Kramer Striker. Yeah, that's what I had.
Was it teal?
Mine was black.
Okay.
I've liked black instruments.
Good man.
Yeah.
My first guitar player in high school is his second guitar player really. He Tim Dietrich, guitar player locally.
Yeah.
He also played a Kramer.
But if we
With us in Yazoo.
Anyway, just so you know, it wasn't like a guitar just suddenly appeared in my life.
no,
It was
it's
always-
cool. What I'm curious about, because I think that we go back to the genesis of music, right? With
Sure.
you and
Okay.
you're taking piano lessons.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that influenced the way you started? How did it form the way you learned? Do you think it was helpful in terms of your understanding of the way the notes are laid out, right? You like when your first instrument. For me, I always thought I went from piano to clarinet to bass clarinet to contra alto clarinet.
Cool.
To finally being allowed to have a guitar.
Yeah.
And then lit myself on fire and went that way.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, there was this linear conceptualization of how the notes are laid out. If a person picks up a clarinet for the first time, there's only one way to play that.
So what you're saying is you were more melody based,
maybe
as opposed to
I
harmony
guess
based.
it's more of a question. It's a conversation, whatever it is. But like if you pick up a guitar for you've got 6 strings. They're tuned in fourths and the third. And there's all these places where you can play the same note. And
Sure.
on the piano, there's only one place where you play a middle C.
Yeah, you bet.
On a flute, okay, I'm sure some flute player is going to prove me wrong, but effectively there's one place to play this note, but
Sure.
With the fingering patterns, it's not linear. It's not like playing a recorder. It's you play this. Oh, now you've gone over the break, and
Yeah.
How do you think that your music may have evolved had you not had that piano influence at the very beginning, or have you put any thought into that? Is it something that you come back around and think about in your progression?
Yeah. I can't speak to any flute stuff since I've never played the flute, but I explain this to people all the time because I do consider myself, I think of myself as a musician, but what that really means to other people is I'm a multi-instrumentalist.
Right.
And what I explain to people with guitar and keyboard is there's advantages and disadvantages to the two instruments. The advantage, like you're pointing out, is this is middle C. This is the only place where middle C happens on these 88 keys.
Right.
And everything just is laying in front of you. And in fact, there's patterns that you can, use as road signs, if you will. I mean, I don't know a better term off the top of my head, but 2 black keys, the one to the left of the 2 black keys is a C note on the keyboard. Whereas, say, on the guitar, if I wanted to play this A note that's on the 2nd fret of the...
Let's give you some...
Sure.
Give you some power.
Okay. So if I wanted to play that A note that's on the 2nd fret of the G string, I can play the exact same pitch on the 7th fret of the D string. But I could also play that exact same pitch. It's not an octave higher or lower. It's in unison. The same pitch on the 12th fret of the A string.
But
And then I can also choose the 17th fret of the E string.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's the best choice. I'm just saying you do have 4 choices?
4 different. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 different
You have
places.
different timbre.
Yes.
But it is technically the same
Absolutely.
note.
You can tell the difference if I play this or this. There's a big difference in timbre, like you said.
Yep.
However, the fact that the possibility that same exact pitch occurs 4 times on the guitar, whereas it occurs once right here on the keyboard.
But it gives some explanation to when you hand Mary Had a Little Lamb to a pianist.
Sure.
Or hand it to a guitar player.
Sure.
The pianist plays it. The guitarist has to think about where they want to play it.
And that's the advantages and disadvantages.
Right.
So you have more choices, which if you wanted to stay in one piece of real estate of the fretboard, you've got a lot of places that you can play that same note. If you're on the piano, there's no confusion. You're right. Mary had a little... It's just right here, laid in front of you. And also, as I said, with the groupings of 2 black keys and 3 black keys, that helps you visualize where the notes are. All of these frets, with the exception of them getting closer together as you go closer to the body, they're not really distinguishable. Right. As far as, one's not red, one's not blue, one doesn't say 1, 5, whatever. Even with the dots, you should do that. John Entwistle, with one of his Olympic basses, actually had Roman numerals in his fretboard. But when you look at this as a non-musician, it can be easily confusing because there's nothing to tell you distinguishing. This is an A. This is middle C. It just all looks the same. Yeah. So the advantage of not being confused of where to play is definitely on the keyboard. The disadvantage is you're only limited to middle C right there. Right. What if you got a lot of chops all the way up here? You got to keep reaching down to that note, right? And those are the 2 harmony instruments that we have in most of our popular music, I'll say. I mean, I know there are other instruments that you can play chords on, but I don't know a lot of people hauling around a harp, No. I don't know a lot of people hauling around a lap steel, you know what I mean?
It should be noted that before we started this podcast, we talked about throwing our backs out. Harps, not happening.
So that's not really that common of an instrument, although no disrespect to any of those instruments, they're very wonderful, but I especially lap steel guitar, I love listening to that sort of stuff. But most groups, for the harmony, if they don't have the harmony within chamber quartet, viola, violin, cello, where they are the bands together, that they're creating the chords simultaneously. This guy has this note, that guy has the 3rd of the chord, that guy has the 5th of the chord, and that guy has the 7th. I mean, to be simple about it, but it's going to be guitar or keyboard. I mean, you can't sing chords with your voice. A trumpet player can't play chords with the horn.
Unless you're a Mongolian throat singer.
I don't hear a lot of that in most music that comes around in my life.
Check out The Who, H-U. They're a Mongolian metal band. They're actually pretty killer.
I'm unfamiliar with that Who.
Yeah.
I mean, I started with the trombone, so that's like kind of the opposite direction. So you can have you can play multiple notes in one position. It's all embouchure.
Yeah, right. The way you shape your
So that's how I learned bass clef.
Yeah.
Was through trombone. You got 7 positions.
Right.
But you can play all of them in the first 3 or 4 all notes.
Yeah, right.
And so it's yet again a completely opposite way to learn.
Well, whatever. I mean, it's all music, and if it enriches your life, if it makes you happy, if it pleases you and other people, whatever. I mean, bang a shoe on a coffee table if it's cool.
It's percussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's if it's fun to do and your friends like to do it with you or whatever, that's music, I guess. But it's funny you should say the trombone. The trombone has the same range as an electric bass.
Yeah.
So often,
as long as you got the good enough embouchure and the right tubing.
Right. Yeah. But it goes the other direction too, because I was encouraged to get a trombone book and work through that on the electric bass because it's the same range, right? Anyhow, I had a long way of getting to answer your question of did it influence the way I think about music from the keyboard to the guitar. I don't think of music as one instrument, and so it was much broader picture in my mind, and I was able to take my obsessive compulsiveness about things and kind of put it on music, but I didn't limit it to I'm just a drummer, or I'm just a bass player, or I can play chords on the piano, or it was all of it. I thought of it all at the same time. So
I think for me it was resonating only because, well, as I listened to you tell your story, I found a lot of like common threads with how you started, where you went, what you did in high school with needing to find an elective, and you were actually steered toward band, and I was actually trying to find a way out of band, because at that point I had it with playing different varieties of clarinets, and I just wanted to play guitar, but there were these rules about you can't be in jazz band unless you're playing in concert band, and I'm like, oh fucking hell. I mean, like, no, well, I guess jazz band's not worth it. It'd be easier to figure out a way to work around the system and find a way into it than do another year of clarinet, even though I loved music, but I was not interested in playing the clarinet anymore.
Yeah.
But I started in piano, and when my daughter was starting off, I remember always kind of coming back to this. Look, you don't have to take piano, because I grew up in the family where like piano was a non-negotiable. You were going to take piano.
Yeah.
Not forever, but you were going to start there.
Yeah.
And of course, as a kid, I didn't understand the motivation behind this. As a kid, I thought it was, why do I have to play piano? It was like, no, this is the way I know how to expose you to something that is going to make logical sense, and you might find a passion for it, but you're at least going to understand notes on the page and the relationship, between a C and a G and an A and a B, and why you don't go, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like why there's not an H and an I and a J, why
totally.
And it made good sense, and I often wondered, where would I be if I hadn't had that? Like, even as a guitar player, the first thing I visualized is the keyboard, and I could not really go up and play anything on the piano upstairs other than the few like Billy Joel tracks that I have memorized in muscle memory.
For sure.
But that's the first thing I see. When I'm thinking about intervals, I see the piano, or I see the piano first, and then I see fingering patterns on the guitar second. And it's just that thought in my head
that is so weird to me.
I guess,
see the chord structure. I see staff.
Yeah. Well,
which
I
is
think I
really
just got your question. Do I see that, or do I see the keyboard? Or what do I see when I'm conceiving music?
It's just
and my answer is I see all of that.
Yeah, cool.
And it's not for everybody to think of things like that, because I do see how it would relate on a keyboard. I do see how it would relate on the page of music. I do see it as the interval shape on a bass, and I do see it physics-wise. Well, this is an A440. This is 8/8. This is A880. All of that is going through my mind, and because my brain, like I said, I have kind of a crazy brain, and I have this insatiable need to know detail, every detail. And then once I'm done with those, I need more detail. It's just this insatiable thirst for things. So that's why I can't limit it to just one instrument, whether it's the guitar or whatever. And I'm crazy about the guitar. I'm crazy about four of those things. I had to, at some point, kind of put parameters, and like, I've only got one life. I can't figure out everything about every instrument. But in the center of that all, the sun in the center of all those planets is just basically music, in the sense that it all connects, as well as being a listener of music. I think of that as well. When you're asking me how do I visualize music in my mind, it's all of the things that you just said. And it's not for everybody,
No.
I met a coworker. This has nothing to do with anything other than it's funny. But I met a coworker once who came up to me. He heard me play once, and he said, I could never be a musician. I think I stopped when I saw sheet music for the first time, and he described chords on a staff as looking like sort of disembodied ants, or like ants that had gotten in a war. We're all just like beaten up. I'm like, no, it's not something I'd ever considered. But
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting thought. Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, for me, like, at this point, I see the structure. I see the kind of the staff. I see how they stack
the thirds
to make the chords, thirds, fourths, seconds. I love dissonance. So seconds, sevenths.
You'll get them with seconds.
Seconds and seconds. Phrygian is my favorite church mode.
Yeah.
Phrygian.
I love Phrygian, and not just because it's funny to say.
And Dorian.
No, not Dorian. Everybody plays in Dorian. That's my brother's favorite scale too, by the way.
I couldn't be in Phrygian guitar works.
You could have been, but it wouldn't have made much sense. But like, I've been singing my whole life.
Okay.
So like, where you were playing with the guitar just as a toy, I was singing. So I played trombone.
Yeah.
I wanted to play saxophone.
Okay.
And I couldn't get into band to play the saxophone in 5th grade without going through clarinet first. I was like, hell no, I don't want to play no clarinet. I want to play saxophone. I want to get the ladies.
It's a miserable instrument.
So they're like, well, we need trombone players. Like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And so I did trombone through 11th grade and then did running start, so I quit band.
Yeah.
And when I went to college, I tried to get into the guitar studio. Matt was in the guitar studio at Central.
Okay.
And I took class guitar, and I was one of the better guitar players. I already knew how to read music.
Great.
I had played guitar.
Yeah.
I'd been in a heavy metal band even at that point. Not as a lead, I was a rhythm. But
you didn't take metal at Central?
No, I didn't. They wouldn't allow me to.
James Durkee wasn't into that?
No, he wouldn't allow me to get in the studio without having had lessons first, and I didn't have money to pay for lessons.
Sure. Yeah.
So I instead then transitioned to voice studio and finished my bachelor's in music business as a voice instrumentalist.
Oh, I never knew that you did all that stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. So and then I became lead singer, gunslinger later on down the road. But singing's always been kind of where yours is guitar, mine was singing. It's kind of cool how that parallels.
Sure. Yeah. Like it's always been there kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
You know, my mom sang when she was younger. My dad played trumpet at one point. My brother took guitar lessons when he was younger. So I always grew up. We always listened to music. My dad liked both kinds of music, country and western.
Yeah.
My brother opened my eyes to all of the classic rock, the punk rock, the heavy metal, everything.
Can I just interject?
Totally.
His brother and I are good friends.
Yes.
And have been good friends for 20 more than 20 years.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
We've been we're not teenagers anymore.
No.
Oh.
So anyway,
But he does teach. He actually teaches my nephews.
Yes, I do.
Guitar and piano.
That's right. Yep.
We need to talk about lessons. We need to talk about instruction.
Okay, let's shift gears. Let's do that.
Yeah, no. So I don't know that we can stretch this into a 2-hour show, but we can have you back.
Okay.
But what have you learned being an instructor with kids of a variety of ages? I would imagine, like what?
With just kids?
No, I mean
kids of all ages.
All students. Kids of all ages. Us kids, little kids.
Okay.
Like,
Well, this morning I had a 76-year-old dude playing bass at 7:30 this morning. So, are we talking about that kind of a kid as well?
We're talking about
oh, totally.
Kid is
all
the wrong
kids.
word. You know, we're all young. We are young at heart. Like
What have I learned?
What have you learned as being a teacher? What is it? What musical itch has it scratched for you? The passion, the joy, teaching others how to make music.
Yeah.
Weighed against making the music of your own. You know, what is it to you?
I started giving music lessons when I was 18. That's when I first had my first person that came over and paid me money to show them how to play the bass.
Cool.
And I started with, these are the notes. You need to know where the notes are.
This is a G.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's been 27 years I've been doing this. I did have, at first, it took a while to be able to make a living at it, of course. So I did have like a job. And the last, real job, or legitimate job, I don't know how to say it. I worked for the state for a year, and then I quit that. And it was, since then, this is all I've done is instruct people with music and play music, as well as various things that go along with being in the music industry, or something musical. And as far as working with people, I don't even actually call what I do music lessons. I call them music sessions. And I don't look at myself as a teacher so much as sometimes I'll use the word instructor, but more as just like a guide. And as far as if you want to get into being a music teacher and do private lessons, something that I've learned over the years is you need to meet people where they're at. Because the majority of the people that are going to come to you to want to learn an instrument are not going to be a musician. When I rented a space in Tumwater in a music store, there used to be the hanger-on kind of dudes that would come in. They were even older than me, and they had a lot of opinions about what's good music, what's bad music, what you should do, what you shouldn't do.
Were you at the music stand?
Yes, I was the music instructor at the music stand for 10 years.
Right next to it.
Yeah, I was the dude in there. and the older dudes would come in and
Cool.
have their opinions about stuff.
Sure.
And there was a metal dude named James from Rochester, and he was a cool guy. He had a band. I'm trying to remember. You know the singer from that band, or at least your brother did. Kill Your Enemies, I think was the name of the band.
Mm-hmm.
It was like heavy metal.
Heavy metal.
It was like, would you say black metal? I don't know. It was just heavy.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Along
it was
those lines.
screaming vocals and crushing riffs. It was heavy. It was real heavy, and he was a good guitar player. But he would sometimes watch me do what I do, and then afterwards be like, "Why are you teaching that kid that Nirvana shit?" And it's like, or people will come in who were dudes who were maybe in the trades, like a house painter or somebody who did that, and they loved guitar. They come in and they'd see what I was doing, like I'd do that for like $5 an hour, and they have no idea what it's really like. Yeah. And what it's really like is you got to meet the people where they're at. You can't tell some kid, Nirvana sucks. Right. And I don't feel that way. It's not my job to tell people not to like music.
Right.
If you want to like music, I'm all for it. I may not listen to that music, or maybe I do. I don't know. Yeah. But I'm not here to put you down for the music that you like. Right. And that was something that a lot of these older dudes that would come in and kind of share their opinions about things, they didn't really see that. And so they would kind of say things like, I'm ripping people off and I'm showing them this easy Nirvana stuff, and they need to know how to, the first Van Halen record or whatever. And when people want to know the first Van Halen record, I'll show them, this is what he did, and I will meet them where they're at. The other thing that I don't think they had in their head is these people are not going to get up on stage. 95% of the people that are coming to you to want to learn an instrument, they're not going to get up on stage. And even, I think most instructors that do it don't really get up on stage that much either. And you have to accept that. This idea that, hey man, I'm going to turn you on to like the Dorian mode, the Phrygian, the Spanish Phrygian. Man, we're going to talk about the harmonic minor, and you are going to rip, bro. Are you ready to go down to McCoy's tonight?
Yeah.
No, man.
Open mic.
Just the fact of being a musician, what we do when we get up on stage and we perform for people, it's magic to the average person. What we're doing, they can't understand. You and I and you, we are the magicians behind the magic trick, so we know how the magic trick works, and we know it's not that complicated, and we know it's just a matter of, we'll get this, learn what a major scale is, and then learn the minor scale, whatever their goal is. It's just one step after the other, but you have to do it. You have to actually put the fingers to the strings, or the sticks in the hands hitting the drums, right?
Well, and I think that people don't necessarily understand. Even these older guys that have their set in their way. This is what real music is about. They don't understand that music is incredibly personal, or they're missing that part.
I was thinking about this a lot the other day, and I don't remember. I think I listened to one too many people bash on like new Metallica versus old Metallica, and I have my opinions on it, but like I came down to this, like I reduced the entire thing down to, you are so comfortable in this area where you understand, like you're people that can't make that shift, they're so against this kind of music, or they don't like it when a band turns a page and does something different. Because their reality is so incredibly fragile that they can only exist within this one model that they've accepted and are comfortable with. And it's so incredibly fragile that if Metallica decides to go from Ride the Lightning to Nothing Else Matters, you fucking hate them and everything else they do down the road just because it doesn't like soothe your palate. Yeah. And it's like telling some kid or an instructor why are you helping that kid with Nirvana? Well, is it meaningful? Are they improving their life because they've done something that resonates here? And does anything else matter after that point?
Nothing else matters.
No,
just like Metallica said.
There you go.
I got my own opinions on that too, and I feel like, you look at Metallica. If you don't like some of their later stuff, you love their earlier stuff. Like that's where I sit, and I can see where they're coming. If I'm in a job doing the same thing for 10 years, I get sick of it and I want to do a different job. It's the same kind of thing. You get sick of doing the same thing. You want to try something a little bit different, add a little something different.
Yeah.
You've learned as a musician, as a person, you've grown, you want to incorporate something different in. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing as an instructor for somebody who doesn't play music until they come to you, who's not going to get up on that stage, they're learning something different. They're doing something different. They're stretching themselves out and growing and learning, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Audiomatic guitar. That's Josh. Remember meeting Josh?
Josh.
At Tacoma Drum and Guitar Show?
Yes.
He's one in
Hi,
Lacey.
Josh. We're going to be seeing Josh.
Josh is going to be on our show.
On our show in a month or two? A month and a half?
September 6th.
Awesome.
So,
cool.
Sorry, we just...
Thank you for...
It's
thank
nice
you
to
for
know
joining.
that the YouTube comments work.
Oh.
It's the first time I've
Yeah, I
seen
wasn't
that.
sure. I've been looking at the top.
I've been looking at you guys talking. I
it's
didn't know I was supposed to be looking this way.
I've been looking at the top of the live chat, and it's blank. And then I looked at the bottom.
bottom.
Oh, there it is.
Yep. No,
Oh,
So,
sorry.
if you're just joining us, we are new to the YouTubes. This is our first YouTube.
the tubes of you.
The Tubes of You. Or YouTube show.
Shit, man, there's a bad name.
Oh, God. That's kind
Tubes of you.
It's kind of a crappy one.
It is.
This is our friend Todd Lukey. I've been talking to him about his life experience as a musician, and we're definitely going to have him back on and tell some more stories and have some more experiences. But
Yeah, I'm long-winded, so we've already taken up a lot of time. But
No, that's
to
fine.
answer your question, what I've
Yeah.
learned is meet people where they're at. Everybody has a different life experience. What you said is exactly right. Music is a personal thing with every individual,
100%.
and we find each other because, hey, you're wearing a Motorhead shirt. I like Motorhead. Let's talk. Or however it happens, but it can bring people together for sure. But the idea of separating people, like, why are you teaching him Nirvana or whatever, those sorts of things. It's not like he was a bad guy. That wasn't what brought him to music.
Right.
Well, I would talk to him about metal because I like metal just as much as everything else. And so that individual I was telling you, James, that's how we connected, And the way that I liked to work is I like to try to connect and meet people where they're at. Like, oh, you like the White Stripes? Cool. Let's talk about the White Stripes and I'll show you some things that they do, or whatever it may be. Or one of the kids last Saturday said to me out of nowhere, because he was just asking about some White Stripe stuff, and then he looked at me and said, "Do you know Master of Puppets?" And you had brought up Metallica just a moment ago, and so those two things connected in my mind just a moment ago. But I was like, yeah, I know Master of Puppets. Let's do it.
Kidding me?
I love it when I read in comment sections like, he's not even playing it right because he decides to play it on the 5th string rather than the 6th string of this person. It's like, okay.
I don't know much about that sort of stuff. I don't hear that, but so that's the first and foremost. Like, hey man, you got to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
You're not there to turn people off from the music they like. The reason they're coming to you is they got something about the music that they like moved them inside. It touched them, whether we'll use the word soul. It touched their soul or their mind in some way. They're like, yeah, that connects with me, and I want to learn more about it.
Yeah.
And that's usually where that spark happens, and they come to see somebody like an instructor. And the other thing is, it's a business. There's things like taxes. There's things like insurance.
Yep.
There's things like overhead.
You have bills to pay.
So when someone, some house painter comes in and, says in front of everybody in the music store looking right at me, "I'd do this job for $5. I'm like, I will hire you now because, you know how much I pay in taxes? I have to own a business license. I have to pay the federal government. I have to pay the state government. I have to pay the county,
Yeah.
Pay the insurance company.
Oh my God. Yeah,
So-
we were talking, I guess we talked a little bit about, Todd and I have, some overlap in services we provide, but, not much, but I offer lessons, but it's not my primary thing. And, but, we were kind of swapping stories about, I think the most ridiculous one was when I was getting insurance for this business. And, what I felt was the most BS line when my insurance agent of so many years came back to me and said, well, look, like we just don't have a category to put you in. You're working on guitars, you're building guitars, you're teaching lessons, and you're doing digital content. There's not a code for your business. And of course my reaction is, and I'm sorry if you're watching this, That's bullshit. It's like there's not a code for my business. And when I finally got her to take a look at the business, she said, well, our underwriters decided that you were too much of a liability because on your website you've demonstrated how to play Michael Jackson's Beat It, and that's not your music. Well, I'm trying to demonstrate to potential students what they can do with the talents that I'm trying to reinforce as they learn, and you're telling me I'm a okay, if the Michael Jackson estate comes and sues me for demonstrating how to play, I really should be, Michael Jackson and Van Halen coming after me for teaching him how to play
Which I don't think either of them own the rights
with their own damn hand. Yeah, if Sony comes after me to sue me for teaching somebody how to play this song, I promise I'll pay the fine. But it's just so much horseshit when all you're trying to do is help people follow their passion.
Yeah. Well, that's a different thing because you're putting on you're publishing it on YouTube or Instagram or whatever.
Sure.
Both that we're on now, right?
Yeah.
And you had asked me about how do I advertise and things like that. How much media, social media do I do? Perhaps I'm totally unique. I don't know, but I do zero social media. It's in my mind spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because you're not the first person to ask me about it, but
Yeah.
over the years, everybody's been like, so are you putting a bunch of stuff on Facebook? Are you doing this? And when they say, oh, you have to do this, this is how everybody does anything nowadays. You got to get a website up, you got to get Facebook, you got to get MySpace, you got to get Twitter, you got to get on and on, TikTok to whatever the new social media app is. And I usually respond, well, who has taken those platforms and just ran with it and become enormously successful? And none of these people can point to anything other than, well, Kim Kardashian. And I had one dude say to me, you need to teach your lessons on YouTube because those guys, they're all driving like Ferraris and Lamborghinis. And I'm like, what guys? Yeah. Joe Satriani's got like, 1 million followers. I'm like, Joe Satriani does. Well, and
Joe
then there's Steve Vai. His thing, it's really popular. I'm like, yeah, bro. They were popular 20 years before YouTube happened.
Yeah.
They had already
they already had them.
Yeah.
So if I had seen examples that somebody could point to and say, well, this guy got his whole career from Facebook, or this guy did some TikTok videos, and man, he is just slammed with work, I would go, oh, tell me more. But there hasn't been a single person to tell me
that's not how that works. It's the content drivers that make
if you're going to implement
the money that way, and you don't get in. You don't have clients based on that.
If you are making the choice to integrate social media into your business, you have to. It is incumbent upon, like, you must find a way to organically implement it so that you're not losing time doing what you need to be doing in order to show people what you're doing. Right.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to do all that stuff. I'm working.
Yeah. I need to find like that's. I do not allow myself to do any more than 20 to 45 minutes a day, and that is literally like, what does it take for me? Like, I will record a repair and demonstrate so I can educate, right? Because everyone watching this show understands that I am of the belief that yes, I am here making myself available to do your repairs, but I'm also big on educating you so that you can do them yourself if you so choose, because we're not operating in a place of scarcity. You're not going to go out of business because people want to learn how to change their pickups themselves, right? So I believe in showing people, like, if you're interested, I'm going to show you how to do this. So can I fit setting up a video, recording a video, and posting a video into my day without losing time that I'm going to actually dedicate to my revenue stream? If the answer is yes, then do it. If the answer is no, you don't have time for it,
don't do it.
Then operate out of word of mouth and find other marketing approaches. But for me, it feels it is my launching pad. It is not my sole source of, like, I depend. If Instagram takes down my account, if whoever hosts my website says screw you, done that, I'm still going to beat feet, walk around the town, and meet people and hand them my business card and say, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Right.
It is one channel, and that's it.
Well, and that's, I think, what we're doing here right now is
Yeah.
a part of that. Like, this is something we enjoy doing, to interact with like-minded people. And I think for me, like, I'm not very mechanically inclined, right?
Yeah.
I like to know how something works, though.
This is a wrench.
So I'll sit here, I'll watch you work on it, and it fascinates me. And I'll watch your video. I might even learn how to do it myself. I would still have you do it.
Don't burn yourself.
Exactly. But it fascinates me, and I like to know how things work.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to want to do it on my own.
For sure.
And I think there's a lot more people like me out there.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
like to watch it just for content.
Sure.
And to learn, but still want somebody else to do the actual work.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
Well, I'll say it when the camera's off. I'll say it when the camera's on. The fact of the matter is, like, I would rather show people how to do something and teach them how to do it for free, because the fact is, when they do need help, are they gonna? They have a choice. Now they can call anybody, or they can call the person that has already helped them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where I want to exist. I want to help you, whether that's me doing it for you or me showing you how to help yourself.
Well, and that kind of goes back to your bass instructor with. It wasn't a structured half hour or hour. It was either you get through 20 minutes and get distracted, or you just 2 hours of just killing it and just you just get into it and go.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of, you get that relationship and you really get in there and you get.
Oh yeah. There is something that can't be replaced by a face-to-face thing. It's not a broad stroking statement, but I think that will always beat screens of things. And I'm fortunate enough to live a life where I meet a lot of people. I'm involved with lots of things, whether it's, I've done things with the Capitol Theater downtown, working there, to played in bands. I've promoted shows in my lifetime. I do music theory lessons to people around the country through Zoom now, things like that. But I met all those people face to face at the very beginning. And the other thing that I find less attractive about the screen stuff is YouTube controls what I can do, and they're telling, like, the insurance thing. They're saying YouTube can take you down at any time, or whatever their reasoning being for the insurance. But they can take you down. They can demonetize you. They can do what, it's their platform. Same thing with any other platform. You're agreeing to their terms to be able to use it. Right. I don't like that. I want to do whatever I want to do, and what I want to do is always a positive thing. But having someone control, and that's why I don't work with other instructors. I don't want to schedule my time around you, and I don't want you getting jealous because I take all the students, or I got the college students and you get the little kids, and now you're pissed because they don't do anything, and I've got serious musicians. All these things have happened to me over the course of the last 25 plus years, and my personality is such that it's not worth all of these hassles when I could just do what I do. And I've gotten better. I like to tell myself I've gotten better at doing this over the last 25 years. Every year I make mistakes. I don't do that again, or that worked really good. I need to keep doing that. Whatever those instances are, I know that when somebody's, distracting me from staying focused on what it is I'm trying to achieve with working with people, that irritates me, and I don't want to be irritated by things, and so I'm not opening a school. Right. That's been suggested to me many times. Like, no, people come because they enjoy the connection that I give them with music, and I can't show that to somebody and have that replicated. Maybe somebody else can. It's not something I'm interested in pursuing. I'm not going to make a YouTube channel to start driving a Lamborghini and Ferrari, along with Joe Satriani and Yngwie Malmsteen, because we're contemporaries, right? Because then there is a gentleman that's on YouTube that I've seen some of his stuff. I don't watch a lot of YouTube. I don't do a lot of screen time. His name is Rick Beato. And, I'm okay. Yeah. You're familiar with him, and he has been starting to put up videos. He calls them angry man yelling at the clouds videos, because they're constantly demonetizing his videos. because he plays little clips, and these companies like Sony and Universal,
Yeah.
they don't have people doing it. They have computer programs scanning the entire YouTube thing
Right.
constantly,
Yeah.
24 hours a day. And if there's a second of a copyrighted song, they will immediately contact YouTube, and YouTube will immediately demonetize it or whatever. And that frustrates him. I'm like, dude, like, they make the rules. You're the one doing this to yourself.
That frustrated the hell out of me too for a bit, and then I started to realize, again, this is like how do you twist it, right? It's a mindset shift. And for me, it was like, look, if I can play a song out of my own damn fingers, out of my own damn guitar, and YouTube says copyright claim, that means I did a good job playing that too.
Sure.
So that's now how I look at that.
I remember when you told me about that.
Yeah, because no one has ever
one.
come to me and taken down a video. They're just saying there's a potential copyright claim here, which means you did all right.
Yeah.
Well, I think the only YouTube content that I am involved with besides this right now, I had mentioned earlier the band Superstar that I played in, the guitar player has made videos for every single song off of that CD, and I know there's some live footage that survived that time that he's put me in.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't think of any YouTube that I'm aware of that I have anything to do with.
Yeah.
Besides this, and I chose to want to be on here to talk with you guys because this is super cool. And
It's a lot of fun. We're happy to have had you today.
It is a challenge when you're working with it. We've done this a couple times when we've worked with an artist that has copyrighted content, but we're featuring that artist.
Right.
But if you don't somehow loop in the powers that be at YouTube and you broadcast their content, then it's like flagged. And it's like, no, we have consent, whether it's through their label or whether it's, through
them being literally on the show.
Their managing entity has like bought off on this, and it's not a copy. Whatever.
See, I don't want to deal with any of that.
No, neither do I.
And so I've chosen a different path than what you guys have been doing, and my path is just different. It's not right or wrong. It's just that's what's comfortable for me. And music, as a whole, is, like you said, such a personal thing, and what you're comfortable with and what you're not. A lot of people wouldn't be comfortable with a lifestyle of an unreliable income stream.
Right.
You got a state job. That's solid, man. And that's
I had a state job until 3 months ago, and I did this.
The insurance package is
the insurance alone is worth showing up at 8 a.m.
because I can cover my diabetic wife and not have to deal with paying for insulin beyond our deductible.
There are strategies that you can implement that will safeguard against. There's a thing called savings, and there's
what is that?
Yeah. And most people who are artistically inclined are not. That's not their strong suit. Somehow I got a brain that was a good mix of those things. Like, what if I can't work for 6 months? Maybe I should anticipate that, even though that doesn't really happen in my life. But say something like a pandemic happens, and I can't work anymore. Well, what am I going to do then? Well,
print money and military.
Yeah. So the idea being, there's always a way to do it. And what I'm doing and not doing any social media and having no interest in it, it's not that's the right choice for everybody, and that's what you should be doing, or you should be doing. I'm not saying that this is my path, this is your path, and I'm glad that our paths are crossing. And music brings such joy to so many people in so many different ways. There's so many fractions of what we're interested in that touches people. You're into the guitar repair, working on guitars. Let me just describe it as you're a guy who works on guitars, and you get such a great satisfaction out of that. You love playing music, you love singing, you love playing guitar, and you get so much satisfaction out of that. If there's something that happens inside of our being that does it, I love playing music. I love being a part of a musical community here in Olympia, and dare I say, everywhere. And the time of being, hey, you like Metallica and I like Nirvana and we're now enemies, that I think that has faded away, and that's just an old way of thinking for a lot of people, maybe even older, just my age or older, because more often than not nowadays when I get young people in, if they're exposed to music, because most of the music that's being produced now is not really what I would call made by musicians. It's made on your laptop with you're clicking and dragging and dropping, and then you have this really monotone sort of voice. So much of that I hear, and I'm like, oh, I guess this is what people like now, but okay. But that's not what I do. I'm a musician who manipulates an actual musical instrument with other musicians creating, pushing the vibrations of the atmosphere in the room. Yeah. That's what I do. I don't do a laptop drag and drop and click the patches and stuff like that. That's just a different path. So people don't come to me for, well, actually some people do come to me for that because they can't figure out how music fits together. Right. And those people are all cool too. I like those guys too. Yeah. In fact, I have a great guy who makes music that way, and we have the best time. But he wants to know things like, what are thirds, what are fifths, how do I sing these when I'm making this music? But those are the ways that we connect to music. That's the way he connects to music. That's the way that people who are making music now. I don't really know a lot of famous stars now that make music. Adele, or someone like that, right?
Billie Eilish.
Billie Eilish, yeah, right. But see, I'm not buying a Billie Eilish record. I'm just not. Yeah. It's not in my wheelhouse as far as if you were to predict what I would go down to Rainy Day Records in downtown Olympia and buy. It's not going to be that record, bro.
Right.
If those guys get in a screaming good deal of a great copy of like a vintage Motorhead record or some John Coltrane Blue Train first print from Blue Note Records,
maybe a Dead Hollows.
All right, you can buy the Dead Hollows record down there, which is the band I play drums in. And we were supposed to play tonight, but these guys got an earful from me. They didn't know what they were getting into.
This has been such a good show.
Awesome. It's been a lot of fun.
We're sitting here at I'm trying to figure out a way to stretch this into like a midnight performance. Like, let's get this all.
Just draw it
We
all.
we probably should end.
Yeah, I'm sorry to take so long, guys.
No, this has been fantastic.
I'm more irritated about having to edit out the I'm sorries than I am about how long we've got. No. This has been fantastic. It's been fantastic.
Okay, well, and I could go on.
I love this comment. When the tagline for the show is a guide to look at the life experiences and ways and means, right? Yeah. But like the very, very, very informal way of describing this show is like if we were at like the smoking patio of your favorite bar and you just happened to end up in the corner with a beer with us and we ended up talking. Yeah. That's what I want this show to be. Yeah. And that's exactly what this has become. Yeah. So, okay,
cool. Yeah. Well, I would love to come back and thank you for the pre-invite.
Definitely.
It's kind of like on The Office when Dwight pre-fires people.
Pre-fired.
Yeah. But what was originally supposed to happen before me coming on here and talking these guys' ears off and just going was I play in a group called the Dead Hollows. And this is a single that we have. And you can buy this at Rainy Day Records downtown Olympia. And you can also buy it from us at our shows. Or if, I don't know, if you're interested.
It's backwards on the other side.
It is backwards. And I had a local artist, it goes by the business name Draw Daddy-O, make this for me. Do the artwork, I should say, for me. His name is Dave. And if you want to check out his stuff, Dave is local. He's an Olympia artist. He has stuff downtown, actually. The city has paid him to do different things around downtown Olympia. Really cool guy. Draw Daddy-O is his business name. I'm sure he does social media.
Yes.
And then, so
15 out of 300.
Yes,
I made 300 of these.
Numbered copy.
Man, that is a lovely press.
And when Ty and I... Ty is the other Dead Hollow. He's the singer, songwriter, guitar player of Dead Hollow. We decided to make this record. We recorded it in our rehearsal space that I affectionately call the Dead Zone. And stuff like this, packaging, I love doing this sort of stuff. I am a record collector. I'm a music collector, so I collect records and CDs, but I also posters and things. Yeah. And Brian's brother, Sean, is also a collector like me, so he and I are always
very much so.
Yeah.
In fact, the two of us, we record label. Revolution Recordings.
Yeah, they put out records as well.
Record heads. Right
Record heads. So Sean and I are always talking about our newest finds and whatever. So I love packaging. I love all that fun stuff, and I wanted to make something that was fun and exciting that I could afford to do, or we could afford, because he and I were business partners in the band. If you will.
And it is. I mean, when you're in a band with somebody, it's a business. I mean, you're
oh my God,
it's a passion,
but it's a family, it's a relationship, it's everything.
It's everything all at once.
Yeah.
So I wanted
very complicated.
If you want to be in a complicated organization, join a band, because now you're married to 4 other people. That's why it just got down to Ty and I, because at least we get along, you know.
We're starting to grow. We're adding people.
Yeah.
3 guitars.
Anyhow, I was excited to make a color vinyl. The guy that was the guitar player in Super Czar, he came up with this logo for the record label, the actual label that I came up with when I was in Super Czar. He made the label, and I continue to use it. It's called Knockoff Records. It's sort of an homage to the original Sub Pop Records singles, where they would have the yellow and the different color yellow on the bottom, and then in the middle they would have the information. On the bottom they would have the band and the songwriters. Ty wrote this song called I Drink the Blood, and it's really a rockin' tune. And then on the other side of this one, I wrote a song called Triumphant, and I don't sing it. He still sings it, but I came up with that tune. So it's a pretty cool single.
Yeah.
And then
I thought it's pretty cool. It's the Ty side and the Todd side,
right,
instead of A and the B.
Instead of A and B, I put the Ty side, because that's Ty's song.
Yeah.
Or Ty created that song. And then the Todd side, because I created the other song on the other side. But I loved things like color vinyl. I loved like Dead Kennedys records. Always came with a big poster and you know, things like that. So I put
lyric sheet.
After we had these pressed, I actually made this separately on my own, and I put the lyrics to both songs on there. I took this picture behind Ty from the drum set, and this is what I see at every gig is his back and his pedal board. And then on the front is a shot that my brother actually took at a gig, and that's what I put the lyrics over. And I tried to credit everybody involved as well. And then in addition to that, I thought, what's one more cool, fun thing that I could add to what we were doing here? And so we had these stickers made up. So you get a color vinyl record, you get a lyric sheet, and a sticker, all in this, as opposed to just, you know, a record and a sleeve. So I thought it was pretty fun.
That's kind of one of the things. One of the first records that my brother and I pressed out with Revolution was Moss Generator 7-inch that was yellow with black splatter.
I have it,
and
I bought it.
Yeah, and it it didn't have a cover. It came in a hard plastic sleeve.
Yeah.
And it came with a sticker that was a jukebox sticker for the record. Yeah. Which actually Tony has a jukebox. If you've seen the we didn't point it out in the tour that I did with him, but I did pass by it, swing by it. He's got our record. I think the proof actually, not the yellow and gold, but or the yellow and black splatter, but the proof, the black vinyl proof, in his jukebox with the sticker as the label. All the other ones have labels that he's handwritten. The records on, but that one has the sticker. That's cool. Which is in the style of the label. So now have I talked more than what Tony talked so far?
Yes. Did I beat Tony's record?
I think so.
I'm sorry, Tony. I didn't mean to beat your record.
We're gonna put. Tony
You're gonna have to come on and talk even longer than I've talked.
We're gonna have a Tony Todd talk off. That's what we're gonna bring them both on.
Yeah. Well, hopefully next time.
Whole day.
Or not next time, but hopefully another episode. Dead Hollows will perform from the Dead Zone.
Definitely.
For you guys. Yeah. And we'll play this song, and we actually, for the first time we ever did anything like this, we actually played acoustically, and he played an acoustic guitar, and I played an upright bass, and we went to a studio in Portland called Chapel Studio, I think is what it's called. The guy who runs it, his name's Barry. In the 80s and 90s, he had a band from Portland, Longview called the Jimmies. Really cool guy. Currently, one of the projects that he does is he has a band with his brother, who's the drummer, and their band is called Grand Head. Cool stuff. It's heavy, but they're a duo. Like Dead Hollows is a duo, although we don't sound the same. But he has this studio there where he got a mono 1/2-inch reel-to-reel machine, had it totally refurbished, got real tape, has this great room mic that's on this great boom stand. You have to play live. It's just one take. There's no overdubs. And so if you mess up, you got to rewind the tape and do it. So we went in there. We had a gig here in Olympia. We went there the next day in the morning, and then we played a gig in Portland that night, and we had just a great time. Ty had come up with some really great songs. He was really excited that I was using a bow on one of them, and so we both had a really great time, and Barry really had a great time. We just a lot of laughs. It's great time. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, contact these guys and let me know, and I'll get you in touch with Barry down in Portland. But we recorded a new single, and it's this acoustic single.
Those are the tracks that you had sent me.
I did send those to, and Barry also, from the same source I'll just tell you the source. There was a band called Dead Moon. Dead Moon, the dude in Dead Moon passed away, and Barry was friends with them, and he's acquired some of the recording stuff. And the vinyl lathe that Dead Moon would make their own records with, he has that.
Nice.
Or at least he has one of them. And so that was part of why we went to him. Like, it's now a year to 2 years waiting list to get your records pressed up by the 4 big manufacturers in the country. So we thought, well, we only need like 25 or 30 of these, and that's something that's doable with him. We have yet to have that done. But he can do those things, and he, as a side business, actually gets orders from bands all around the world. Say, we need 50 copies of this, because we'd rather have 50 copies of something to sell in Tokyo or New York or whatever, that's just that you do by hand each one, and we'll pay you for whatever your rate is. We'd rather do that to have them now than wait a year or 2 years to have 300 or 500 copies or whatever, while we're playing gigs for the whole year, have no merch to sell. So he's got kind of a side business that's pretty cool. So we went to Portland, played at the Chapel Studio, and did two acoustic songs, which we had never done. We're always just so fucking loud, man. It's crazy that we've gone this completely different direction. So what we had anticipated doing we're rescheduling is we would probably play electric, and we do probably the A side of this, or the Thai side, which is I Drink the Blood, and we would probably do 1 or 2 of the acoustic tunes too in the Dead Zone, and simulcast it with you guys.
Sure.
Or maybe we can come up here and do it acoustically. I don't know.
Love it. We have the space.
Yeah.
Dude, there is space.
But that's what we were originally supposed to do. Unfortunately, you guys got stuck with me just yakking and going on.
It's very good.
Having a good time.
Todd,
but the Dead Hollows was supposed to play this. Sorry, Ty.
Todd, if there is I'm not going to use the word student. If there is a player or an aspiring player out there who wants to hire a guide for a session, how would they get a hold of you?
Is it okay to give out my actual cell phone number?
If you want to. It's up to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can say, contact us and we'll patch you through.
Well, no, I mean, it's pretty public knowledge.
Cool.
So if you wanted to get a hold of me, text is always the best way. And my number is 360-480-4974. And if you shoot me a text and just say, hey, I'm interested in coming over to your beat laboratory and having some fun with music. One thing that I do hear people reflect back to me a lot is they really enjoy coming over because it's fun.
Cool.
And I want people to have that association in their mind about music. Music is supposed to be fun. I mean, it can be many things to many people. Yeah. But from me, I want you to have a fun time talking about playing music and being around me doing music as a fun experience. So,
as it should be.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I guess we should end there, I guess.
Yeah, I don't.
I think that's a good
I
start.
really don't want to, but yeah, we're up at 2 hours.
Oh, good Lord.
So next week we are on Tuesdays with Toya.
At
so
5 o'clock next Tuesday.
On Instagram, follow. She changed her handle. It's now Toya Writes Music. If you're not following her, go do it.
At Toya Writes Music.
At Toya Writes Music on Instagram. So that's on the 16th. The next guest show. We will have another Backstage the Tuesday after that, but the next guest we have scheduled at this point will be Audiomatic. I'm off the screen. We're getting used to this new format. I'm over here. I'm over here. We will have Audiomatic Josh September 6th. So come back from your Labor Day weekend and get ready to kick ass on Tuesday.
And then don't we have Victoria on our show?
We have Victoria on our show on the 20th, and then we have Olympia Guitar Company, and then we have Jasper Amplification.
Wow. We've got a whole lineup of shows.
And more people. You know what? And if you want to be on the show, give us a call.
Give us a holler.
Cool.
Make some notifications on the YouTubes.
Absolutely.
Add some comments.
Yeah.
Let's call it a night.
Welcome to the community, Mr. Todd Lukey.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out.
You. Hey,
appreciate
guys, this has been so much fun.
It has been fun.
And don't forget,
Fret less, rock more.